we're here with the creators of Centrix, and we're going to be discussing their game. I hope the stream didn't freeze. That's what Lou is saying right now.
Well,
no. Well, we'll see. We'll see in a second. We'll go as we go here.
We'll give a little warning. So we are in the middle of a very large storm. We've lost power several times today, especially this afternoon. So hopefully we'll not lose power or internet or anything else during the stream. That's the goal.
So I'm going to go, I mean, you guys know who I am. Will, Wes, my wife Heather is here with us. And then we have Centrix Games. We'll start with the top. So Corey, you're up at the top. You want to tell us a little about yourself?
Sure. Corey Rankin. I'm from the beautiful city of Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
Lived all over, including Michigan. So,
Michigan
fans. Spent some time in Germany in high school, and I was born actually in Alberta, the home of the Edmonton Oilers. Okay. And I've got a couple of kids, which has kind of inspired the couple of boys that are 9 and 11, and we like to have board game night. And over the years, we just kept playing more and more board games, and had an opportunity to kind of work with Richard to develop this cool Centrix game, and excited to be on the live stream tonight.
Thank you, and it's awesome to have you guys. I really appreciate you guys coming out and doing this. I know this is Twitch, especially within the board game community for Twitch. It's like a budding community, so you don't see a lot of crazy things happening right now. But we're really at the ground level of what's happening with board games on Twitch. We stream another group called Crit Camp Streams, Twist Gaming. But there's a lot of guys out here on the ground level, which is kind of funny because the board game community as a whole, there's this almost like renaissance of board games in the States right now. Would you guys agree with that at this point?
I would say globally, not even just in the States.
Yeah. Everywhere. I mean, we're just, we've got a couple very large gaming stores in Toronto. Snakes and Lattes is a big one you may have heard of. Board Game Bliss, 401 Games. These are all big game stores.
Yep.
And it just seems to be that a lot of folks want to go back to this analog world, board games, and play with their friends and play with their family.
Yeah.
And that kind of inspired us to come up with something that we thought people would want to put away their tablets and their phones and have a great board game.
That's kind of the goal. And I think it's funny because we actually talked about this on stream a few times, but a lot of people within, like middle-aged people in the States, starting with probably like 29 to 50-year-old range, who grew up with video games, they hit this period of like disillusionment with the digital form of gaming because, the dream was that the multiplayer world would enrich gaming, but it's a mixture of 1,000 things. Toxicity within communities, simplifying of game mechanics to placate bad players. Do you know what I mean? Like so many things within the digital game community got tainted, and I feel like a lot of people from my generation and a little bit older are moving away from digital back to analog. What do you guys think? Do you guys think that's a fair assessment?
Yeah, I mean, even on a global scale, echoing what Corey said, just in Toronto, we've got 20 board game cafes. That's a population of over 3 million, and they can support that.
Right.
It's a big trend here. One of the things we did to promote Centrix was, of course, go on social media, make sure that Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter knew about us. And as we were going through Instagram, discovered board game cafes in like Oman, Saudi Arabia, any European country, Australia, they're everywhere. So there is a huge resurgence of people just loving board games.
Yeah. I think I don't know, like I said, the digital transition for me was the reason I went back in board games. And then I found I started actually. We're currently designing our own game. Well, I'm designing my own game called.
Say,
Yeah.
I play it.
And this sort of I flip back and forth between doing this and the game. But mine's called Adventures in Retail. It's a card game, and it's based on pretty much what I went through in my life over the last 2 decades, basically. I worked in retail, and I think I'm going to ask you that question after I finish with my little rant here, but but it was part of board game design for me is like a cathartic experience. You know, through designing my game, I was able to actually sort of work through this damage to me, my psyche, you know, working in retail for those years. And for me, it's more of like advanced game mechanics tying to retail. But the more board game designers I talk to, it's almost like a unifying theme. All right, yeah. Thanks for the lore master trigger there, Krish. But I feel like a lot of game designers say that there's a point when they're designing where it's almost like a musician, you know, composing a song or somebody singing, where it's like you're typing or you're writing notes and you have a prototype in front of you. You hit this point where it's like, oh my god, it's out of me. You know what I mean? Like, what? I don't know. Let me know.
That's true. Yeah, that's totally. I mean, there's a lot of ups and downs as you start. It stops and starts.
Yeah.
So what inspired you guys?
I wanted to do a collectible kind of game to start.
Okay.
And Richard was nice enough to spend the time with me to kind of, you know, just work through some of those ideas. And that kind of led into developing Centrix. So I wanted to do something analog that people could collect, have fun, and do something that felt kind of lasting, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
Kind of leave, this may be too philosophical here, but leave a little bit of a legacy, you know,
absolutely.
to folks. And that kind of inspired me. I've been in kind of more on the business side of things for the last 20 years, and you know, developed all sorts of products and stuff, but they're not physical in the sense that you can touch them and spin them and turn them like a board game can. And I just because my sons were 9 and 11, I just kept seeing them come home with Magic and Pokemon cards and trading these things, but not knowing how to play them.
Right.
They never knew how to. They just trade the cards.
Yeah.
The baseball cards of their generation, right?
That led into us getting Dominion. We had just been in the game store.
Love that game. One of our favorite.
We started there, and my son, I think, was 6 at the time, and it said, I think, 14 plus on the instructions.
Right.
And the guy at the game store said, no, he might have a hard time playing it, but you could probably teach him.
Right.
And so we sat down and we played that as a family, a 6 and an 8-year-old at the time, and they seemed to get it. And over time, my 8-year-old started to beat my wife and I in the game. So we're up to, I think, 7 expansion sets in that.
That's great.
And then we liked an old game called Can't Stop.
I saw somebody tweeted that. I think One Day West tweeted that today, and I was like, "What is this game?"
Now, when you think of that game, and you think of a game like Blockus, which is a great game that you can sit down and play for 20 minutes.
Yep.
And those colorful games kind of brought something out in me to think about how can we do something really interesting, but also that I could play with my kids, but I can also play with Richard.
Yep.
You know, and that's how we started. Just Richard and I rolling dice and play testing this over time.
Of course.
And then we brought it to the kids and said, "Hey, does this work?"
Right.
But it worked for adults, and that was we didn't want a game that only worked for kids,
Of course,
because that's kind of boring.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. That's like half the time when you have kids is you want to find a movie that you want to see, even though.
Yeah, we know nothing about that.
Yeah. Oh, you mean not Red Car
Even though
Room?
I'm like, I don't want to see a baby movie anymore. So, we needed to make sure that we liked the game.
Yeah.
And so that was really important to us. And, that kind of inspired us. And I know it's a little philosophical, but we really, we tried to create something a bit pure and that could be enjoyed by, 4 friends.
Correct.
Yeah.
That are in their 20s or 30s or 40s or 50s. Or I could play with my mom,
Yep.
Yeah.
who's almost 80, without having to spend, a long time teaching her.
Right.
And that's a challenge to build a game like that. A bit of strategy. It's not going to take you a long time to read the rules. I think we're a double-sided page, so to speak, for the rules. And, you can pick up the game in a few minutes, but it will take you more than a couple games to get good at the game.
Right.
So you're not going to learn how to spin this disc. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh,
you're
yeah.
Not gonna learn,
There it is.
Learn how to spin this immediately and figure out what to do with this until you've actually played it a few times.
Right.
But it's super easy to start and learn.
So one thing that I was going to say, and I know.
Do you want to let Richard introduce himself?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Richard, I know
we went off on a tangent and
sorry.
forgot to let you introduce
I do
yourself.
that. So Richard,
sometimes I have to rein him in. That's
Richard,
what I'm here for.
Introduce yourself. You tell us where all of your influences came in for designing this game.
Okay, sure. So born in grew up in Sweden. I played a lot of European games as a kid, so they were different maybe than the North American alternatives.
Yep.
Generally tended to be abstract games, but stuff like Stratego, which has now come to North America, was a mainstay for me.
Phenomenal game.
So we played on a sheet of paper that kids could do, like a mechanic built into checker paper. It was quite clever. Stuff like that. But in terms of my adult life, I'm an ex-army guy. I then merged and became a business guy, and that was a lot of fun too. But finding my way into gaming and games and game design, and in this case, bringing in a board game, and publishing a game through Kickstarter, that's about creativity. So for me, designing and creating Centrix, the greatest joy has just been the creation, the creativity that's gone in. I'm not an artist, I never will be. So as close as I can get to that, I guess you'd say.
And I mean, you bring up the artist part. I have to ask the question. And how aggravating is it when you're trying to put something together and you have these images in your mind, and then like you want to translate it to the product, to the game?
It's very aggravating at the start. So I had a relatively decent level of drawing skill, but not good enough to get my ideas into paper. So I had searched someone out on what we call Kijiji. I don't know if they have that in Pennsylvania, Craigslist type of thing.
Okay.
Oh.
And risky proposition there.
I found an artist that would teach me. So I would drop my kids off at school and then take a couple art lessons a week, and even doing that, getting your thoughts on paper.
Yeah.
If you're a game designer.
Yeah.
Or a product designer, that's the hardest part, especially if you've got a great idea in your head. And then once you get it on paper, then what do you do with it? So then I said, okay, well, I can draw relatively okay now. Then I went and I found another person that would teach me how to do 3D renderings. So that's like a SolidWorks program or another program. And you can see the board is 3-dimensional.
Right.
So, no experience there, but we knew we needed to do something like that. Obviously, I'm not the artist on this. We ended up finding an amazing artist.
Yes.
This is an older prototype, but once we found out that the game worked mechanically wise, and we could actually build it and get it produced, so to speak, then we went out and found an artist. But it took us, I would say, we had a couple starts and stops with some artists that maybe didn't have the same vision as us.
Okay.
Maybe maybe a different philosophical view of how you should do a board game.
I can relate 100%.
Yep. And until you find that person that you can work with, and that's kind of understands what your vision is,
right?
That's probably the hardest part. But with us, it's not just doing the artwork; it's us around doing the actual board game, which is a bit different. Because typically you might have some cards that you might do, and you might do a standard, rectangular board. In this case, we're like, okay, we've got 6 discs, and they have a bunch of colors on it, and we actually want to do. It's not on this side, but Richard might have I don't know if we have it with the reviewer or not, but on the other side of the disc, we have a colorblind.
The iconography. I saw that in your video.
And Richard was really pushed that hard, which was great.
Yep. Because
the ability to basically provide a game that everyone can play was important. So it's a challenge, right? In terms of you're getting your vision to something that actually is going to work and people are going to want to play.
Dave, thank you so much for gifting one day the sub to our channel.
So I have a question for you guys. So you talked about, the creative process. How long did it take from your original concept to get to a point where you had that prototype, or maybe even an original prototype before you had the plastic rendering where you could actually do that play to see if it worked? Did it take you a long time, like 6 months?
They were actually, they were very quickly. There were several prototypes.
Okay.
The initial start was just a piece of notepaper. I drew 4 circles on them, divided them up in pies, and sort of said, here. Then somehow you climb to the top.
Yeah.
That part, no clue. But the week after, I developed, just took 4 pieces of round cardboard, and I divided them up into the 6 colors, the same colors that we see today, drew them with pencil, and so we had something that moved, and these discs spun, and so at least we could try something, and we borrowed some survived meeples and some dice, and we tried to figure out, well, how do you negotiate your way upwards when you've got discs that spin sideways? Doesn't make any sense, right?
Yeah.
And then eventually I had some 1/4-inch plywood. I'm really handy, so I sewed out the 6 discs. In this case, we went for 3 levels, screwed them into a central spindle with locking nuts in between. And then we had something, bullet. This thing exists today, and you can throw it around. It's that solid.
There's an older one.
Yeah,
That's great.
that became what we used to eventually arrive at the mechanic. And the mechanic was the part that took the longest time, really. Arriving at the board was pretty quick. Yeah.
So actually, tied into this, I don't know if we touched on, how did you guys meet? Were you in a gaming group together? And because I mean, that really, like when I first saw your video on Kickstarter, I was like, these guys are very unique individuals. What brought these 2 guys together to create this game, because there's obviously two different like lifestyles, two different sets of like influences, and it's funny because I know, Corey, you mentioned that you almost had to Richard had to pull you away from collectible card games, and like, okay, no, stay away from there. Let's look at like a board game, some innovative mechanic. Let's stay away from these like what everybody else is doing right now. Let's do something unique. So yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
How did we get together?
Yes.
So we've known each other for 20 years.
Okay.
So software.
We did work in a previous life together, and we just remained friends and in contact all through those years. And I started thinking I want to do something else, not in kind of the regular kind of business space. And
of course.
Richard was a willing partner to challenge my ideas, and I think me to challenge his.
That's phenomenal.
Which is often the challenge, right? Because if you're not honest with what's a good idea and what's not a good idea, you can end up with something not the best. So,
very true. You don't want to be placated because your result would be, something that doesn't do well for you.
It's hard. It's hard. I mean, we've had lots of good arguments, believe me. But I think those have helped create a great game.
Right.
And sometimes that process is a little bit of an artistic process of getting that energy out.
Yep.
You end up with something that is better than good. We think hopefully is better than good, and but you got to challenge each other. Okay, that doesn't work. Okay, you play the game one way for a week, and then you come back and say, okay, that did not work, right, or that worked amazing. Let's do more of that. Yep. And so that was we just known each other for a long time, and I respected and trusted his work in the business side. So that makes it a lot easier when you've got that connection already. And we didn't meet on a gaming site or anything else.
So from initial conversations, hey, let's build a board game, to where you are right now. What are we talking timeline wise? How long is it? How long for Cenrix? How long have you guys been in development of Cenrix?
Well, we started about a year ago, but I don't think it got serious on the Cenrix till probably July in the summer. Okay. And that's when it felt like it was really coming together. Lots of play testing. I mean, a lot of play testing. Like Richard could tell you, we started with dice and we drew cards. And I don't know if you can see the back of my board here, but I'll move to the side. But
that's okay.
All the color wheels.
There's a lot of different colors there, and a lot of different variations. So it's about a year, which I think if we were starting over again, we would do it a lot quicker because we're a little bit more experienced now.
Right.
But it's finding that sweet spot. How do you make sure that you have something good, and you just got to keep working at it.
Right.
Yeah. So you're on Kickstarter now.
Yep.
You want to go through kind of where you are with your campaign?
Well, actually, real quick. So we'll do a quick breakout. Anybody who's in chat right now, we can open up questions to you guys too. But I also wanted to mention, so the game is Centrix. It's currently on Kickstarter. I'm going to switch over real quick to the screen so you guys can see the Kickstarter page. Let me do that real quick here. So you guys, right here, you're seeing a representation, or actually the Centrix page on Kickstarter. You can see it's a multi-tiered game board where the objective is essentially to reach all your pieces. I believe you said you have 4 pieces that you have to reach the top. Is that correct?
3.
3 pieces that have to reach the top. And there's a bump mechanic, which we'll get a little more into the mechanics of it. No, I understand. I just want everybody in chat to see and understand what we're talking about today, because I only had @Centrix game on there, and I want people to have a better visual representation of what they're about. But yeah, so I'm gonna let you guys sort of touch on the mechanics of the game, what you love about it, and then tell us a little bit about the Kickstarter journey so far for you, how you guys are feeling about it, and ultimately what do you guys need? Like what's your hopes and dreams here? But go ahead. So we'll start with let's go with mechanics.
The mechanics of the game, sorry, or you want to talk about Kickstarter? Okay,
we'll touch on Kickstarter, probably the last thing, because I'm sure there's some aggravations that you have to, you guys can vent with us.
Right. Actually, the mechanics of the game, the ones that we have today, really came together as a result of playtesting that we did with other board game designers here in Toronto. And I don't know what they put in the water in Toronto, but there's an incredible collection of really smart game designers. And they were truly the ones who brought home the mechanic in the end, and made it a playable game for, well, really eight years old and up, for up to 6 people, 20 to 30 minutes playtime. And in terms of the mechanic itself, it consists of colored cards, numbered cards. Numbers on the cards indicate how you can spin the board left or right, so how many spaces left or right you spin.
Okay.
The color indicates the pawn that the color, the square that your pawn can move to.
Okay.
So with these 3 pawns, you're going to move up the 6 levels to the top. First, you get 3 pawns to the top, wins the game, and number 2 and number 3 and so forth. So if I kind of showed you these 3 cards, for instance, if you can see that well enough there.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, different colors. There's blue, there's yellow, and there's a white one, I think, there. And I use those to kind of unlock a route that takes me upwards by spinning sideways and climbing up. And the movement on the board is the interactivity part, so I can leapfrog over another opponent, or if there are several of them lined up, I can leapfrog over all of them. I can also bump them down 2 spaces, so that has a cascading effect. So if that pawn gets bumped down 2 spaces, there's another pawn on that space that gets bumped down again, and so forth.
Okay.
So it's good interactivity. There is suspense right until the very end, because in the mid game, you really don't know who's winning. There's no ever any clear winner. It always comes down to the very, very last few moves that decides who's going to take it home.
Okay. And average game time, what do you guys clock it at?
20 to 30 minutes is doable for a game, 4 people, depending on their experience. If you're more experienced playing it, you're going to play it faster because you spend less time thinking about, how am I going to play this card? Right.
Now, I don't know if you guys can see on my screen here. I have the website up, and could you guys see what I'm pointing to here from my screen share? So these red colored cards, it means that you can move the track. Is that correct? Is that to move the track left or right?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
So for orientation, you can spin it whichever way you want, though, correct? So you spin in any direction?
Any direction, left or right, but I can only move it 1 space left or 1 space right if it's a number 1 card.
Okay.
2 spaces left or right if it's a number 2 card, and then number 3 card, 3 spaces. And you have to move them 3 exactly. It can't be, up 2 or anything, yeah.
Okay.
So someone asked, can you play multiple cards on a turn?
Yes, you can. So you want to play out your hand, especially in the beginning. You want to play it out so that you use up all your resources, and then you draw 3 new cards, next person's turn.
Okay.
Oh, so 3 cards is a hand. It's always 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
At the very, very end, the way you get to the top is you play the card that represents your color pawn. So if I've got 3 blue pawns, all the blue cards are going to be important to me because they're the ones that are going to allow me to get to the top.
Okay.
And there's also 2 wild cards. They act as any color and any spin card. Then you get to the top as well. You want to, as you approach the end, you want to start conserving those cards. So then it's not such a good idea to play out all 3 because then you can end up at the top just like drawing cards because you kind of blew it.
Yeah. Turn order, is it constant throughout? Is it represented by who's in first place or who's in last place, anything like that?
No, it goes around the table.
Got it. Got it. And what were the other things I was? So, I see what dictates. So I can use the different colors here: the red, green, blue, yellow. What does that dictate? Like I can move up with my pawn, or I can turn the track. Is that correct or no?
You always turn the track first, but that's optional.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if I play like the one, that one,
track, but the color dictates which square you move up to, or sideways. But that typically doesn't do much unless you say want to bump someone down.
okay.
So you'll need the orange card to move up to the orange square, or if there's pawns in front of you to leapfrog up to orange square above them, you'll need that orange card.
Okay.
There's a friend that just
I was
showed
saying,
up.
we have a kitty that likes to join stream occasionally too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
He's
one over there.
sleeping in the chair right now.
Cats everywhere.
I would do one by me here too, right by the
Yeah, we
Seems
got.
to be a thing. Felines have to attend streaming or something.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah.
That's right. They want to be on. They want to be on camera.
do. Gotta
so,
be famous.
So you mentioned one thing that I heard you guys mention before was the community in Toronto. A lot of designers out there. So how did you get how did you meet up with those guys? Are there like down here in Pennsylvania? There's a group called Unpub, and you're probably familiar with it. But you can actually meet up with them, and then you bring a friend with you, and then you and the friend play test other people's games, and then they and their friends play test your game. But all of you are designers as well. So is that the kind of thing, almost like a designer mixer thing that you guys did, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
One, most of the
September, Proto TO. That's where we first introduced Centrix.
Okay.
And then there's 401 Games, Board Game Bliss, and Snakes and Lattes here in Toronto run really well organized monthly events. So all the game designers show up for them. They sometimes bring multiple games even, and they test them all out, and you test each other's. It's a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, you don't see, I mean, you see a little bit of that, and you actually see, well, in my area, it's kind of starved for board games, to be honest. But the Portal Comics and Games down in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, it's about an hour and 10 minutes from our house. They are doing, not monthly yet, but every couple months they do a game night, a board game night, where they have designers come, they have players come, they run contests, they collect money for charity. And you're starting to see it a little bit more in the States, but it sounds like Toronto has an amazing gaming culture right now. And I think my wife and I have to move
And
there.
a bigger, I was gonna say, I was waiting for the, new request to move to Toronto.
We just want to get out of the cold. That's the only problem. So that's great. What else? What else could you think?
Well, so you have 10 days left.
Yep.
So what's your goal? Because you're coming down to the wire. So you have.
We got 10 days left, 40% so far. So we're going to have to really up those numbers. We're hoping that our existing support base is going to do a lot of help. And we've seen them go out on social media and support us as well. So they've been tremendous, actually.
Yeah.
So,
what's your
I was
gonna say, so just so people that are watching right now know, obviously they can go out and check it on Kickstarter, but what is the base level to get the game? Do you know what the base pledge is?
35 American, I believe. Is that correct?
$35 Canadian US, and that includes shipping.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it's not cheap to ship between the United States and Canada, I've found.
Well, we cheated. We're gonna print the game. We're actually gonna ship it to the U.S., and that's how we can build in free shipping.
That's phenomenal. Yeah, and you guys fulfillment. You guys have so you have U.S., but it's worldwide. You guys have fulfillment around the world. So if you get somebody who's interested in Australia, you guys can get them the game in Australia, right?
Yeah.
Great.
So what are some other things you want to say about your game? This is your opportunity to really showcase. Obviously, we talked about the mechanics. We've talked about the pretty colors. We talked about the fact that you have, something that's available for people that are also colorblind. What's something that you really love about the game and you think really sets it apart from everything else that's out there? aside from the fun turning wheel?
For me, it's really that it's just counterintuitive. It's the idea that it does not make sense to go sideways or to move sideways or think sideways, even to go up. And along with that, the fact that the board changes with every move. So you receive a board from your opponent that's now totally different. And as you play 3 cards, you're changing the board too. So you better think about which move you're going to make first so you don't mess up your own moves.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's true. I didn't even think about that. Your 3 cards are going to affect you as well.
Right.
Yeah. That's a square board, and it's the same from the beginning to the end, more or less, right? But this, it's constantly alternating and alternate. Its look and its shape. So that's my favorite. How about you, Corey?
Yeah, I mean, having play tested it and been to all the game stores and played a lot of games, I like the colorful aspect of it, and I do like the way the board changes. I know that whenever we take it out to a cafe or we play it at a testing night, or I even show a friend, they're like, "Oh my God, that is so cool! I love it," and that's pretty cool, to hear that type of feedback, and to hear it from sometimes non-game players.
Yes.
Which is kind of neat. The gamers, we heard it, like guys would sit down that maybe are into much deeper games, like what would be an example of a long game?
Yeah, like Zombicide, or even like the Game of Thrones, Risk Legacy, Pandemic Legacy. The games that really take a lot of time I was gonna ask
early on in the testing of that or playing, we thought guys are going to sit down and maybe not enjoy it as much. Maybe it's too colorful. And then by the end of the game, they're like, "Hey, man, that is cool. I would definitely play that." And so to get that kind of validation that even the hardcore gamer that maybe wants to, sit down and spend 4 or 5 hours with the game would be willing to play Centrix, maybe to start the night, maybe to end the night.
Absolutely.
Or play with their family. Like we had the one place that we tested the game was, it's a fairly large game store in Toronto, very popular, called 401 Games.
Right.
And there's a person always managing these game nights. And, sometimes they're pretty jaded, right? Because they see so many games come through. And he was like, "Oh my God, I would definitely get that for my family." And so that was pretty cool. And so I like that part of it. I like the parts where we've combined pawns, cards, and the board.
Right.
That combination is pretty cool. Like if you play other games, like with tiling games, those games change obviously, but you lay those out onto the table and you start flipping them over. This board always looks nice.
Right.
And one of the things that we always wanted was having younger kids is, can you stop and have dinner and then go back to play the game?
Right.
And that was always would you want to have the game at the side of the table while you eat and go, "Okay, we're done now, so let's get back and play it." And so that was kind of a nice to have on my end of things, to say we've got something that you could set aside. I don't know if you've ever heard of a thing called a lazy Susan. It spins and you food around it. And so those are on some old time tables, like retro. But, we always thought this board should be nice enough that you can leave it there and you don't want to put it away. You want it on a table so you can get back and play it.
Unless you have a 2.5-year-old, then you don't leave it on the table.
Cats don't. Yeah, I was going to say, as long as the cats don't mix the pieces up like they do for Axis and Allies, one of the games that we have.
Yeah,
they destroyed the game, much to the chagrin of my kids a few times.
Cats are good at that. They're really good at that.
So one thing, and I'll bring this up. You guys can comment or you can not comment, but I always bring this up when I talk to designers, especially in regards to Kickstarter. But one thing that I've noticed is that there's this hunger within the Kickstarter community regarding board games for like these insanely detailed pieces and ridiculously produced games that you have to already be an established company to put out product like it, which in a way I feel is almost undermining the whole idea of a Kickstarter, because the idea of a Kickstarter is you're starting out, you're a new company, and you are beginning to exceed. You aren't, you're not established. And I feel like there's this unnatural hunger within the community on Kickstarter at this point, where, yeah, give me a great game, but I want the most beautiful components. I want the highest quality board, and these really crazy things that they're asking for in a way, the people who are buying on Kickstarter. But I think it's also being fed by these established companies using the platform as a way to generate this false hype in a way. Like Kickstarter exclusive. We've made thousands of board games, but this is a Kickstarter exclusive. And buy it now. Yeah. But it's like a $320 investment, and then meanwhile you guys at the $35 level are struggling, where these guys are taking $320, and when it's happening at the same time as your game hits the market, it's like this double-edged sword,
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, there are games where guys just want and guys and girls just want to collect miniatures of the Dragon Lord.
Right.
And our view is just we want to design something pure, and we hope that people will that will appeal to people.
Right.
It may not appeal to everybody, but getting out, being on your live stream here, talking to other folks, getting the word out will help, certainly. But I'm with you, because we know some of those people that have launched some games,
right?
And it's we're doing something a little bit different, I think.
Right.
One of the little I like to do, Will. Is I'm always curious about that too. So what I like to do is I go and check what other games our backers have also backed.
Right.
And I do that daily, actually, just to have a look. I'm curious. I'm kind of a nerdy one.
That's fine. I can tell you wrote the last update about the calculations required for existing backers to give the proper amount to get to where you guys need to be. So.
But no, seriously, I agree. Centrix is rubbing shoulders with guys that have backed Chulu, Scythe, Zombicide, you name it. Honestly, I was really quite shocked that they have a real variety in their interests. Right. So it really didn't worry me after I saw that hey, we're there with the games that you're talking about.
Yeah.
They're interested in this game too.
Well, it's one thing that also aggravates me as a board game. We're a super backer on Kickstarter as well, so we back a lot.
We back a good variety of games too, but we really try to aim for people that are issuing maybe their first game and bringing something that's totally unique, because there's always going to be games with minis. There's always going to be games with a million cards and that are deck building. And while we love deck building, Dominion's my absolute favorite game, probably. There's a lot of other really cool stuff out there, and a lot of cool different, strategies that you can play based on a game that you have. And
I wish the algorithm for recommended games gave me games I actually also wanted to see. Like, for example, your game, I think, was on my the 5th or 6th page on my recommended games, where I felt like it should have been, or recommended items on Kickstarter. I feel like it should have been much further to the top. I was getting these other ones that were all miniatures and shiny and stuff like that, and I was like, you know what, I don't want to drop $300 on a game right now.
Like Batman, he's talking about Batman, but we don't say Batman because then he goes on a rant.
Yeah, that's right. Don't say that more. she just said that she blocked my ears. But yeah, I'll stay off the rant right now. Sorry. But I think it's tough because looking at part of it is I know what I'm going to be entering in when I do finally finish the design of my game, and I'm thinking to myself, God, if like Cool Mini or Not launches the same week that I decide to launch, or if this massively successful company launches alongside of me, is it going to cut into my game? And I think, Richard, you answered pretty well. You said that there's a mix of people on yours. Like, there's people that are backing the crazy minis, and there's people that are backing games like yours. But that sort of feeling that you had, because I'm sure part of the research and the trigger for you to research it was that, is this game, does it go in line with people who are actually on Kickstarter right now, right?
Exactly. I was just curious, who are these wonderful backers who are supporting us? And I was so surprised to see their variety of interests.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think the reality is, like, I don't know if you can see behind us, but we have a lot of games.
Too many, probably.
Too many, yes, probably. One of the other things we backed was a game storage thing, but
yeah.
One of the things that we're looking for always, because we do play a lot of games, is something that's unique, and that's something that your game really offers, is a totally unique experience when it comes to gameplay, which none of the other games we have functions anything like that.
Right. Which we're always on the lookout for, and that's one of the things. Like, the moving board was the coolest thing. When I first saw the picture and I looked at your Kickstarter, I was like, this is just a circular board. And then I started watching the video and I was like, oh, wait a second. I can move the spaces, and like if somebody's in line to go someplace, I can bump them like away from that. Like this, yeah, okay, sign me up. But yeah.
Thanks.
Just real quick, we're getting some comments in chat. One Day West says that the Kickstarter bullying is definitely happening at this moment. And Eric, the great comments. I just think if people see a game they might like, they're going to go after it, and the other things out there don't factor in as much. At least that's the case with me and my group. I think I definitely agree with that. But again, everybody has a budget, and when you want, like when I go on a Kickstarter, it's impossible for me to like hit buy. I want to, but every day I go on I shouldn't say day.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Every week I go on to Kickstarter. I'll do my perusing, and I'll look at like a handful of games and be like, okay, if I buy this, I can't buy this one. And then I think that's part of it. That shopping experience that happens there. And I think we're definitely in a board game, within the bubble right now. And
there's definitely a boom. Like and even since I would say last year, we really saw it pick up to where now, every week you're seeing new stuff pop out, and a lot of it's very similar. And what's so nice about, the one that you have is that it is so very different that if you get people to take a look at it, it's a standout from everything else that you're seeing. Yeah, there's not a ton of minis. Yeah, there's not a ton of cards, but it has just what you need to separate it from maybe all the other games that you already have that have 1 million cards or 1 million minis, and how many minis can you really paint?
Yep.
That's what I ask myself.
So I would say anybody who's watching now, definitely a bit of a call to action. If you're not planning on backing, and I really hope you do, but if you're not planning on backing, please at least go get out on your social media accounts. Check out the Kickstarter page, share it out, let people know what these guys are trying to do. Let them know that this is a really innovative game and different than pretty much a lot of things that are on the market right now. And get that call out.
Yep. So any questions out there from the people that are here watching? Any questions for the designers or anything about the game itself?
Yeah, just let us know. I want to, while these guys are getting their questions together, I want to thank you guys for taking some time out of your probably insanely busy schedule between, because I'm sure you guys work full-time jobs alongside of this. This is 90% of the time it's a hobby, passion project outside of what they do for a living. So thank you guys for taking the time out of your schedule to sit with us and do this tonight.
And obviously we're really hoping that
yes,
it makes it.
Yes, we are.
Thank you so much, guys.
Yes, we are.
Thank you, guys. Yeah.
Any questions? We're
We're not talking about wind chime. Reese, we'll save.
They're harassing him from a previous stream, but I mean, no, we don't see anything else popping up. Is there anything else you want to say? Any final thoughts? Any final, I don't know, recommendations other than get out there and Kickstarter and click that button?
You summed it up. Just get it out and share, spread the word. That's really what we want. We hope that your folks, back the game, but spread the word.
Yeah,
that's the biggest thing for us, which is getting the word out.
All about it. When individuals arrive at our pledge page, we have a really good conversion rate. So they see it, they check out the video, they read a bunch of stuff, and they like it and they pledge.
Mm-hmm.
It's the part of getting them there. That part.
Yeah, that's always tough. And I mean, I guess for anybody that this is more of a designer question. So anybody who's watching that might be a designer or working on their own game design, what do you guys found has been the best market saturation for you, like that you can get the word out? For example, I looked at like Facebook advertising. Is there anything that you guys would recommend to get the word out above anything else right now?
We're still experimenting with the different mediums, different channels.
Yeah.
It's
definitely social media.
Facebook,
yeah.
Social
is the big one.
Social media is good. We're hoping that doing these types of podcasts and video live streams are Absolutely. Kind of the future of how people want to kind of experience and find out about the game if they can't play it themselves before getting it. Right. So I think this is a great opportunity. Reviews obviously are nice to have. We've got a really good review. I don't know if it's up on the Kickstarter, but there's a really nice gentleman here, not in about a 3-hour drive from Toronto.
Okay.
Called the Bearded Meeple.
Yeah, that video's up.
Really I watched that
the
game, and so that was pretty cool because we sent the game to him blind, like didn't even know him, and I had posted a note saying I'm looking for local reviewers, and you're always a bit nervous when you send your game out,
right? And
he did a really nice review of the game. He understood it really well, and so that's a good one for folks to watch if they want to see a good review on the game. And
you guys put
also
like
mechanics of how you move the cards and how the board actually moves. I think I showed a few people on the live stream how the board moves, but when you see how the board moves in combination with the pawns and the cards, that kind of brings everything together.
I'm trying to see. I'm sorry, chat was popping up there. But no, I don't know. I'm always excited to play new games.
Yeah.
So, but one like the first thing the biggest thing was the first thing that I saw with you guys. Again, the first impression thing, and I think that's one of the tough things. Is like when you just see a picture of it, it doesn't do justice to your product. Once you see that board move, that's the game changer. You know what I mean? That's that one item that you guys have designed is the game changer. And I think it's tough because in a world of social media, everything's pictures and a blur of text. And if it's not like, hey, people just swipe.
Yeah.
So,
hey, they do have the bright colors. You have bright colors going for you.
But yeah. So, yeah, I don't. That's pretty much all I have for questions.
Yep.
I really hope. I know some of the people are saying that some of the stream is actually choppy, and I apologize for that. Weather was rough today. Hopefully, once it uploads to the Twitch servers, we could see the quality of it. I hope everything came out okay. I want to thank you guys for coming out tonight. I really appreciate you guys taking the time out, and I will activate outside of stream and try to help you guys any way I can as well. I want to get the word out for you guys.
And we're hoping you make it. Really
We are.
hoping.
We are really, really hoping you guys make it. And I'm sure you are too, right?
Yeah. Probably just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Listen, thanks a lot, Will and Heather. I really hope to see you in Toronto, by the way. You better come
Yeah.
over.
We hope
You
to.
gotta bring your game to get it play tested here, and it'll.
It's a good idea.
Yep, I'd really like to. Last thing I actually wanted to ask. Conventions. Do you guys have anything lined up for this year?
Well, the next one is Breakout, and that's here in Toronto. That's third weekend of March.
Okay.
Out there, I know, for sure. We'll have to see how things go with Kickstarter because, that drives everything else after that.
Of course, yeah. But yeah, let me know. You guys have my email, so shoot me an email. Let me know where you guys are going. We go. I'm definitely going to PAX Unplugged again this year in Philadelphia. But I like to meet up with people as we go along too. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Have a great night.
Yeah, you too.
Yep. Thanks for calling in, and we'll see you later. Thank you.
Perfect.
Cheers.